China has appointed a new international trade negotiator following the outbreak of a devastating tariff war between Beijing and Washington.
To Donald Trump's trade war now, and China has called on the United States to cancel all tariffs after Washington announced exemptions for some consumer electronics.
President Xi Jinping on Friday urged the EU to join China in defending globalization and opposing unilateral acts of bullying.
Which brings us to Europe. They were bracing for a full-blown trade war, but then Trump hit the brakes. The tariffs are on hold for 90 days. So Europe is now in a limbo. They have 89 days to strategize. What is their game plan?
The European economy stands as one of the world's most formidable trading blocs, a solid market force in its own right. Yet recent developments have sparked growing concern that China is flooding Europe with an influx of low-cost goods, a consequence many see as inevitable amid the ongoing tariff war with the United States. As Washington tightens its grip with trade barriers, Beijing appears to be redirecting its surplus export capacity towards the European Union. The result, a wave of inexpensive Chinese goods washing over EU markets, particularly in sectors like textiles, footwear, and consumer electronics. This has alarmed many European manufacturers and retailers, raising fears of what some are calling a deliberate dumping strategy. Europe prides itself on strict trade standards that emphasize quality, durability, and safety. In contrast, China's economic power lies in its ability to dominate global markets through mass production and cost efficiency. The EU, however, is no easy target. The pressing question remains: can Europe withstand this flood of cheap imports, or is China now facing an unyielding wall of resistance? Before we delve deeper, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and hit the like button. Let's explore the data, the political backdrop, and the economic realities shaping this dramatic shift in global trade. Trade imbalance and the surge of Chinese goods. Trade between China and the EU forms a crucial pillar of the global economy, with hundreds of billions of euros exchanged annually. According to the latest figures from Eurostat, between Q4 2024 and Q1 2025, EU imports from China rose by 6%, while exports to China dropped by 3%, a growing imbalance. Historically, China has been one of the EU's largest trading partners. But since the U.S. imposed high tariffs on Beijing, this balance has become increasingly skewed. Recent data indicates that Chinese-made textiles and electronics have gained nearly 10% more market share in Europe in just a few months. This shift is placing immense pressure on domestic industries in France, Germany, and Italy, where local producers struggle to compete on price. Is this dumping? The issue of dumping is now under serious scrutiny. In simple terms, dumping refers to selling a product in a foreign market at a price lower than in the domestic market, often to outcompete local producers. European regulators suspect that China may be engaging in such practices to undercut European businesses and seize market share. While Chinese officials deny these claims, citing lower production costs and supply chain efficiencies, some British retailers point at tax exemptions and customs loopholes that make Chinese imports unfairly competitive. A product that costs 105 euros locally can sometimes be bought from a Chinese seller online for just 34 euros, including shipping. This price disparity has raised alarms. Regulatory response and anti-dumping measures. The European Commission is currently investigating these concerns and may impose anti-dumping duties if necessary. Such measures have been applied before in the steel and solar panel sectors and could soon extend to textiles, small electronics, toys, and shoes. However, these steps often provoke sharp retaliation from China, which accuses the EU of protectionism. Several EU countries, particularly Germany and France, are calling for stricter regulations. Meanwhile, others, especially Nordic and Eastern European states, advocate for a more liberal approach, citing benefits from cheaper Chinese raw materials and semi-finished goods. This division complicates efforts to form a unified EU response. Producers versus consumers, a delicate balancing act. For policymakers, the dilemma is stark: protect domestic industry or ease the financial burden on consumers. Inflation, economic stagnation, and reduced purchasing power have made cheaper products more attractive. But if European producers are forced out of the market, the long-term consequences may include job losses, reduced competition, and eventually higher prices. The geopolitical dimension, beyond economics. Political tensions are also in play. Europe's relationship with China is already strained due to concerns over human rights, Beijing's alignment with Russia, and its growing assertiveness in the Asia-Pacific. Now, trade frictions threaten to add another layer of complexity. Germany, a major exporter of industrial machinery and automobiles to China, stands to lose if trade ties sour. At the same time, countries like Italy, Spain, and Portugal are voicing growing anxiety over the competitive threat posed by Chinese imports. Small businesses, particularly in textiles and footwear, report sharp declines in orders and fear a new wave of bankruptcies. A trade war on the horizon? There are murmurs that an emergency workshop has been held within the European Commission under the title Cheap Goods from China and Potential Dumping. While no official actions have yet been declared, sources suggest that more rigorous anti-dumping duties are being considered. If implemented, these could raise product prices in Europe, potentially worsening inflation, but offering some relief to struggling manufacturers. In retaliation, China may curb investment in parts of Europe, especially in countries involved in the Belt and Road Initiative. This could further divide EU members, with some prioritizing trade ties and others advocating for protectionist policies. The bottom line, imports of Chinese goods, especially in categories like toys, kitchen appliances, and clothing, have surged by 12% to 15% in just the past 6 months. Meanwhile, European production in similar sectors has declined by as much as 7%. Even without confirmed dumping, the disparity is undeniable. European chambers of commerce and small business associations are pleading with the EU to take swift action, close tax loopholes, prevent unfair pricing, and defend local industries. The fear is that if this trend continues unchecked, a wave of bankruptcies could soon follow. In conclusion, the ripple effects of the U.S.-China tariff war have reached European shores. While China scrambles to find new markets for its oversupply, Europe is caught between the need to shield its industries and the desire to keep goods affordable for consumers. Will Europe choose firm protection or flexible accommodation? Either path carries risks. But one thing is certain: trade tensions between China and Europe are escalating, and the next few months may determine whether this turns into a full-scale trade war or a balanced economic realignment. What do you think? Is the surge of cheap Chinese goods a normal phenomenon of global trade, or is it a calculated strategy to undermine European manufacturers? Should the EU step in more forcefully to protect its industries, or should consumers be free to choose affordable products regardless of their origin? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next update in the ever-evolving world of global trade and geopolitics. Until next time, goodbye and stay informed.